Welcome to the Ellevate podcast, conversations with women changing the face of business. And now your hosts, Kristy, Wallace, and Maricella, Herrera.
Hello and welcome to the Ellevate podcast. This is your host, Kristy Wallace, with my co-host, Maricella Herrera.
Maricella, this is a new situation for us right now. We are not sitting across from each other in a conference room or in a phone booth, and we are taping the podcast virtually. So how are you doing, Maricella?
I'm okay. You probably can hear my cat scratching in the background. Yeah, it's a new normal.
Yeah. And if you wouldn't mind sharing, what is your new normal?
Well,
so where are you right now, and how are you feeling?
I'm in my tiny, really tiny New York City apartment in the Upper West Side. Just me and my cat, staying in, working from home, trying to limit as much as possible my excursions into the outside world just for some air and sanity. But that's really it. Lots of catching up with people. It's interesting, and I'm sure you'll have lots of thoughts on this, but it's interesting to me how I've been in my apartment, but somehow I've also gotten a chance to connect with a lot of people that I haven't in a long time. It feels like somehow we are all in our little homes and in our worlds, but we are more connected than before.
I agree with that. I was talking to my husband about it this weekend because we typically are go, 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 go. We get up in the morning, we go to work, we come home, we get the kids to bed. On the weekends, we were supposed to be at a baseball tournament this past weekend, and I was supposed to be at Villanova on Friday speaking at an event. I mean, all of that is not happening, and so we have more time, and I think time is grounding in some ways, right? We've kind of stepped back from the go, 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 and we're focusing more on the here, the now, the people, the connections that are increasingly so critical and so important and so fulfilling. And I've had probably way too many happy hours, virtual happy hours, more happy hours than I was having before in real life. But really, from college friends to family to coworkers to neighbors, have found the way to really, spend time with everyone in this virtual landscape.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like my friends are scattered in different places of the world. I'm lucky to have really good friends in different places where usually I can go visit, but not the case now. But it does come to be like, my friend in Greece, so let's do coffee because that time works, and then someone else, let's do lunch because that's the time zones and how it works. And it's all virtual, and since I don't have to move to go anywhere, it's easier. So I've talked to a lot of my friends that I hadn't in a really long time, which is nice.
So our guest today is Dr. Amy Cirbus, and she is at Talkspace, which is a digital telehealth company that has really responded to their community and providing resources and therapy and support during this time with the coronavirus.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear this. I really think it's a time where we're all thinking about this. I know I've been stressed and anxious and not having a good night's sleep for a little bit. I'm sure it'll be very helpful to hear what she has to say.
Well, let's get to my interview with Dr. Amy Cirbus from Talkspace. Amy, thank you for joining us today. I would love it if you could share with our audience a little bit about your background and what led you to Talkspace.
Sure. So it's great to be here. What led me to Talkspace really is an organic shift from working in private practice and consulting in the city, and myself, my husband and my family moved upstate, and I also was pregnant at the time. And within that first 6 months, had a baby, was adjusting to living upstate, and really wanted to continue to do the work that I was doing. But I had a private practice in Queens. It was really difficult to come back to the city to work, and starting from scratch up here just seemed really insurmountable at the time. And so I really was looking for some place to use my skills and to use my expertise in a way that would allow me the flexibility that I needed during that time when I had two kids, one being a newborn. And I found Talkspace. Back then, it was just getting started. It was quite a while ago. As the company has grown and as mental health and telehealth has grown, I've really been able to grow with it and witness all of the developments that have occurred over the years.
And what specifically is your role at Talkspace? Tell us a little bit more about the work that you do.
Yeah, sure. So I am a therapist on the platform, so I do see clients on the platform. And then I also work with our clinical leadership team. And my job specifically is to work on all the different initiatives within that clinical team, the clinical initiatives that we might do for our providers. And I have worked to building up our provider community and the resources and that we offer them. But then as the director of clinical content, the focus of that job is to really bridge the gap between what our clinicians are doing and what we're doing with the outside world. So the clinical information that we're disseminating to our end users through our marketing team and our business development team. And so there's just a lot of different initiatives to make sure that we're bridging the gap so that all the different parts of the company also have a clinical lens and a clinical eye on what's going on.
I have to say, I love telemedicine and telehealth. I have 3 kids, and I live in the city and a full-time job with Ellevate, and kind of having that at your fingertips, I think it removes so many of the barriers of, I don't have time to commute, or I can't find someone, or I don't know how to fit it into my schedule. And I just love, what Talkspace has created there.
Yeah, I really do too. And I think that what I've seen over the years too, I was actually skeptical when I started. I was thinking, how am I going to convey depth of feeling? And how am I going to maintain that connection? I like being with people. I really loved my job. I enjoy that space, that shared space. And so over the years, I really do believe in it. And that's why I continue to have clients on the platform. And it's been really interesting for me to see the fact that I had been in practice for 20 years in a number of different settings and in outpatient and in private practice. And my clients that I have on Talkspace really are probably the most diverse because of those barriers being erased. So people from all walks of life in any different situation, most of whom have not been to therapy before. And so this is the way that they're learning about it and gaining access to it. So it's been really interesting.
You mentioned earlier that part of your job is advising everything from the marketing team to the therapists and practitioners about, what's happening in the world, about best practices, about trends. And I'm going to dive right in here because we are at a time with the coronavirus and how it's affecting lives in so many different ways where this is ever more important. But I think also confusing as well. And what are we feeling and how do we respond to that, and how do we support each other and find the medical support that we need during this time? So what are you seeing here? Everything from just, anxiety and fear to maybe loneliness and everything that is affecting people's mental health during this time.
And it really is all of those. I think one of the things that pervades everything is the anticipation of those things. And what I've been seeing has changed every single day. It's one of the most important things that I think that is happening this last couple days than had been happening the previous week is that people are accepting what's happening. As humans, we sort of want to stay in the status quo, and especially when it's not something that we've controlled or that we are able to control, rather. So there's been a lot of anticipatory anxiety, a lot of anxiety around the unknown, around powerlessness, around what are we going to do, and anger underneath that, and just upset and disappointment and frustration. And so we're starting to now see some of that a little bit start to turn into, okay, well, this is the situation we're in. And then how do I manage those things? And those then go from really sort of larger concepts to specifics of, okay, now I am really lonely. I can't talk to so-and-so. How am I logistically going to manage working from home, either when I don't feel connected to my work or when I'm also trying to teach my children who are now home with me and expected to do their work. So it's just such a new norm that we didn't anticipate. And so that is just bringing up a myriad of different individual stressors.
That really resonates with me, this feeling of unknown, because I mean, I'm feeling that. What is the new normal? Like, for our listeners who I'm sure are all dealing with their own mix, their own cocktail of emotions, like, what is the normal? Is there a normal? And how do we cope with this?
It's such a good question, because I'm not sure that we know what the new normal is. And that new norm is so different, like you said, for everybody. We are out with the sort of the rug has been pulled out from under us. And so it is really about being flexible with ourselves and with our routines and schedules right now. You know, we're sort of feeling failure, or we're half doing things right now. And I think giving ourselves permission, this is not what we're being judged or tested on right now. We are doing the best we can, and giving ourselves permission to go ahead and create. I think it's important to create loose routines for the day, come up with a game plan. And then I think last week I did that every single day, and every single day it did not go as planned. And so you either sort of re-implement and get together and gather it up and then start again the next day. Being mindful also of what you can do in this moment in time. We're hearing new developments all the time. And so we can't live necessarily in the what if. We do want to make sure and keep an eye on what's going on out in the world a couple times a day. But we do want to just say, okay, well, here's what I can do right now in this moment, and then move on to the next moment, and then move on to the next moment, because giving ourselves permission to not be at our best, as well as giving everybody else in our household permission to not be at our best, is going to really be the key as we sort of cling to each other and within our broader communities as well, and giving time and space to ourselves in the workplace and to our teams, as well as we just sort of do the best we can and keep going.
You mentioned being mindful, and this, concept of mindfulness is something I think a lot about. I try to meditate, and even these times, the past couple of days, when I'm starting to feel like my chest is constricting and I'm starting to feel anxious, I've been trying to just stop and focus on breathing and trying to also, like you're saying, kind of, okay, what's that next step I need to do? Don't tackle the whole project, or what are some of the positives here, the silver linings, the spending time with my family, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Are there other, mindfulness or in the moment habits that we can adopt that can help us when we're feeling overwhelmed or anxiety?
You mentioned breathing. That was one thing. There are tons of even apps out there to get us into a present moment state of being, of walking away for a minute and just taking 5 deep breaths. If you have 5 minutes of sitting and meditating, of doing a guided relaxation, either because you've been practicing the same or you're going to go try a different relaxation or mindfulness technique. And it really is about taking a couple minutes to regroup internally. I also encourage doing that at the beginning of a day, especially when we're all home and we might not have sort of those sequencing routines that we would normally have if we're going to go to work. Maybe we get up and we stop at the same place to get coffee, or we, get out of the house. It sort of triggers our minds to get ready for work and then to come home from work and be with our families. And when we don't have those things, we can sort of, our minds can go in a million different places and we sort of lose track and then it becomes chaotic emotionally. So getting up in the morning for yourself, just grounding yourself, whether that's meditating or just taking a few minutes to think about what it is that top priorities of the day, certainly not details. And then taking a few minutes throughout the day as well, just to step away and breathe. Or if you're going from work email to home email, or even just standing up and shaking it off and then coming back to regroup and either cooking a meal or being with family.
And when do you know that you need more than that? That you should go to Talkspace or another resource to get more support?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good question. I think that in general, what I say, what the litmus test is to say, okay, well, when it's interfering with your ability to function. So if you're finding that you can't concentrate, that you can't regulate your emotions, there is no calming down from that extreme anxiety. If you can't sleep at all, if you have sort of repeated some of those same fears that you're having to others, to friends, or to the people within your household, and you just don't seem to be able to catch your breath emotionally, mentally, that's when it's a really good idea to reach out and connect with somebody professionally.
And how do we support others? I can't tell you how many different email and text strings and WhatsApp, and we're all kind of going up and down, and someone's stressing, and then they're the stabilizing force for the other person. I think about that a lot. Like, how do you show up for your friends? How do you show up for your family? How do you show up for your employees, for your coworkers? Ellevate is centered around community and the power of community. And we have our squads program is launching in a couple weeks, and it's these online peer mentoring groups. And I imagine during this time, they'll feel a little bit different than they are at different times. But we're all, as humans, inclined to support those around us. And I think sometimes feel as if we might be failing in that category too.
Right, because sometimes we don't know how to show up. Right now, it's so unprecedented. There's no hard and fast rules other than making sure that you feel that you're doing what's best for you. And it's going to look different every day. I think that balance also that we talk about, or at least I talk about all the time, isn't going to look the same today as it looked a month ago, and certainly isn't going to look the same on a day to day. And if you feel like doing all right and it's important for you to show up, and I think that does help us when we show up for others, you should go ahead and do that and connect and to be there. And if you're feeling oversaturated with that, if you need to take a step back, that's really also just as good for the collective because you're doing it for yourself. And also, I think within our own private spaces, we're much more inclined to do that with our small groups. And then with our larger groups that we might be connecting with, being as patient and kind and positive as well. I think that some of the things that I've seen is our fear and the powerlessness and the unknown sort of puts us in a really great position to cast judgment because other people may not be managing it in the way that we think is best, or doing things that, we feel like might be dangerous, or talking about it in a specific way. And so when we become really fearful or anxious or upset, it's contagious. And so we're not always at our best. And so again, coming back to making sure that we feel like we're taking care of ourselves first.
What about for employers and managers? So I know at Ellevate, we do have some Slack channels, focused on remote work, focused on mental health and support. We, are doing virtual community hours where we can talk about what's on our minds, what's bothering us, or what we're hopeful about. So we're trying to support one another as best as we can. And then also as managers, if someone needs to work different hours, either because they need a break, because they need to take time for themselves, they have family, whatever it is, we're doing everything we can to be fully supportive of that. But are there other things that employers and managers can do to really support their teams during this time?
Those are really great. Talkspace is doing that as well. Everything, really offering virtual support and communicating. So one of the best things you can do with your teams is to communicate, is to put information and expectations clearly out there. I think that letting people have the flexibility that they need in order to perform well, ask a lot of questions, check in often, offer support without making it mandatory, and having really our pulse on how everyone is doing and supporting them as best they can is really so individual. But also we want to be able to come together as a team to know that, everybody is okay, or even sending out surveys to see in a couple weeks, how are things going? What would you like to see changed? What do you need more of? Because it will be a marathon as opposed to a sprint. And so all those things are so important. And then the continuity of those over time and tailoring it to what our specific culture or our teams need the most.
Yeah, those are great suggestions. And for our listeners, if there's other things that are working for you at your organization, please share them with us. Tweet them at Ellevate NTWK or shoot us an email at podcast@ellevatenetwork.com, because this is so much about figuring it out together. And Amy, as you've said, we don't have the framework. We're learning in many ways how to respond to this. I had another question. One thing is this idea of kind of your hopes or your dreams, in the sense of, college students that were looking forward to that graduation, or, that semester abroad, or that family vacation you've been saving up for a year and now is canceled. And, there's all of these other things beyond the day-to-day that we were hopeful for, that we were looking forward to, that have been canceled or pushed back. And I think that is another layer that people are dealing with, because it's one thing when it's just, the chaos of the day and trying to navigate the new normal. It's this other thing when you had your dreams tied to something that may not be what you wanted it to be.
It is. And, that's definitely been conversations that I've been in, both with clients and personally, and our personal family had things that we're now not engaging in. The first piece of that is really to just allow yourself to be upset by it. I think that we often skip that piece and move into comparison, or this is how we should feel, or we need to move on, and it's going to be okay. But giving ourselves a moment to just feel upset and to be sad about it, and that it really helps us ground all of our feelings right now, because there's a lot of those out there, and we are just going through a really collective emotional time. And then to also, whatever that thing is that we had been really hopeful for, that we were really looking forward to sit with that for a moment, to really transform that into still owning that for ourselves, whether that is an accomplishment and the celebration of, or a trip we had been hoping to take, or something we were hoping to be a part of that we now can't be a part of, that it still lives there and it's just going to take another form. But the more we can think about it in gray shades as opposed to black and white, the better we're going to be able to still take ownership of whatever accomplishment that was, whether that is academic or discipline because we saved the money, or something that we had been working toward. That piece is still not gone. It's just the execution of it and the timing of it that's going to be different.
We had a trip planned that we canceled. So everything you just said really resonated with me, because I've been thinking about how to process that, and also from, my family and my kids that were looking forward to it. Yeah. I think when you have these moments, you build them up so much, and you talk about it, and you're planning for it, and how to process that and then move forward. Amy, you've been a big part of Talkspace recently launching a COVID-19 stress and anxiety management program, which is so important. And it's also something that I'm inspired to see how companies are responding and pivoting and innovating during this time to respond to the needs of the community and to create that support that we need. So tell me more about this program.
So the program is for, you can actually find it on our landing page. The program is for our users who might be experiencing anxiety and really needing the relief right now. It's a 16-day program. And core components are to reduce the physical sensations of stress and anxiety, learn new skills for managing it, problem solve any unexpected issues, and just improve overall quality of life while you're experiencing a lot of these symptoms. And the therapists and clients are really engaging in it together. It is really about a brief therapy approach to understanding, okay, so what are our stressors that are going on right now? Some education about that, some previous ways that we've coped before, which is really a big component of getting a handle on things is, well, what has worked for us previously? What can work for us now? And then working together with a therapist to implement that and to work on that and chip away, getting better and better in a sort of relatively shorter period of time.
Thank you for that, and thank you for all that you're doing. This is so important always, every day, but especially during this time with so much unknown and so much change in the world. We usually end the podcast with a lightning round, and it may seem trite during this time and given the conversation we just had, but it's also, I think, an important part of grounding, and it's something we do, and it's something I really enjoy doing, and I want to kind of retain those things in my life as much as I can. So,
which is a good coping skill for everybody, right? We still have to find some sort of normalcy and humor as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. All right, so Amy, I'm going to ask you some questions. If you could answer in one sentence or less, are you introvert or extrovert?
Extrovert.
What's your favorite day of the week?
Definitely Sunday.
Are you an early bird or night owl?
Night owl.
Who's your dream dinner guest?
That's a really tough one. Michelle Obama or Hillary Clinton.
Excellent. What's your pet peeve?
Cheating.
Your Monday morning staple, so activity, food, beverage.
Getting up earlier than everyone else. French press coffee pot to myself.
I absolutely appreciate that. Your favorite recent read?
American Dirt.
What's your top self-care practice?
Hiking and Orange Theory Fitness.
And what's one thought or question you'd want to leave with our listeners today?
I think the importance of cutting yourself some slack. It's really important to give yourself permission to experiment and to try different things and to fail. Permission to fail over the next few weeks without owning it as a reflection of your character, but rather the integrity of that you're holding of just showing up every day as you are and just trying your best.
Thank you, Amy. This has been such a pleasure speaking with you today, and also just your insights, your advice, the coping mechanisms. And for any of our listeners who are struggling, you're not alone. This is uncharted territory for so many of us. And please know that community, the Ellevate community, is here to support you. And we've got great resources like Talkspace who are also here to support you during this time as well.
Thanks so much for listening to Ellevate. If you like what you hear, help a girl out. Subscribe to the Ellevate podcast on iTunes, give us 5 stars, and share your review. Also, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at EllevateNTWK, that's Ellevate Network, and become a member. You can learn all about membership and all the great things that Ellevate Network is doing at our website, www.ellevatenetwork.com. That's ELLEVATE network.com. And special thanks to our producer, Catherine Heller. She rocks. And to our voiceover artist, Rachel Griesinger. Thanks so much, and join us next week.